Hello, everyone. I'm Sharam Surudi. I'm the senior analyst at OC Auto Consultants. OC Auto Consultants is a consulting and market research firm in the automotive field. Our main function is research on automobiles. Our analysts gather all the technical information, technical specifications, and the results of all technical tests that are performed on the 400 distinct models of vehicles in the US market. We gather this information, analyze it, and we store it in a computer. We also try to get to the dealerships physically and test drive vehicles. I personally test drive anywhere between 20 to 25 vehicles per month because, as you know, many vehicles go through re-engineering every few years, and there's some newer models that enter the market that have not existed in the past. We work in all 50 states. Anywhere you're located in the United States, you could contact us through our phone number or through our website. If you live in a major city anywhere in the United States, we are in direct contact with all dealerships and all different makes and all different brands. Basically, we have no particular bias toward any certain brand. No financial relationship to the dealerships or to the automakers. We receive 100% of our consulting fee from the client or from the consumer, so that gives us the freedom and latitude to protect your interests 100%. The underlying premise and the fundamental reasons that we established this company back in 2004 was that for the past 10, 20, 30, whatever number of years, what we have done is we have gone to the auto dealership to gather information, to do research, to test drive cars, and to purchase or lease vehicles. And that environment in the dealership is an issue because the salesperson at the dealership has their interest and your interest. There's a conflict of interest between your interest and their interest. Basically, their interest is to move or to sell the brand that they carry in their inventory. Your interest is not to buy that particular brand, but to buy or lease a brand that's most suitable for your needs, for your driving style, for the types of roads you drive, and for your usage. Again, their interest is to sell or lease the vehicle at maximum profit to you. Your interest is to purchase or lease that vehicle at minimum profit, which means at maximum discount. So that conflict of interest justifies having a consulting company on your side, which is neutral and unbiased toward a certain brand, which receives a fee from you as a consumer to protect 100% of your interests. As I mentioned, we work in all 50 states. Our website is www.ocautoconsult.com. You could see our fees and policies on our website if you click on the tab that says fees and policies, and if you call us, the phone number you see on the screen, we'll be glad to help you in choosing the right vehicle at the right price. A big part of our work is technical analysis. What we do is when you call us for the first time, through our phone number, we need about 10-15 minutes of your time. We do an evaluation of your driving needs from a technical standpoint, without even getting into the financial things. And the type of roads you drive, the types of roads do make a huge difference. The vehicle that's suitable, let's say, for high-speed driving on an open freeway or highway is different from the vehicle that's made, let's say, for sharp turns in a mountainous road, or from a vehicle that's made for, let's say, slick roads that are covered with snow, ice, and rain. So it's very important that we customize the vehicle to you. Driving experience makes a huge difference. The vehicle that is the best match for your needs might not necessarily be the best match for your wife with 2 kids, might not be the best match for your 75-year-old father, might not be the best match for your 21-year-old daughter. The process of customization and tailor-making the vehicle to you is extremely important. Again, some of the premise here and some of the underlying reason for establishing this company is that, in life we use, for different matters, we use professionals. For our legal matters, we use our family attorney. For our accounting and tax needs, we go to our family accountant. For medical needs, we go to our family doctor. We have never had this opportunity in the past to do this with cars. We haven't had the luxury or the luxury of having a permanent family automobile consultant that you could go to anytime you want to buy or lease a car for yourself or for your loved ones. And we are creating that opportunity. So the ultimate goal here is not to just get a call from us and say goodbye and we'll never see you again. The ultimate goal is to be your permanent family automobile consultant. And we're trying to create this professional relationship where we're always in constant communication with you, just like your, maybe perhaps your family doctor communicates with you on a, on a continual basis, or your tax attorney or your financial planner. So that is the ultimate goal. So the one question that you might ask is, okay, well, in life we buy hundreds and maybe thousands of products in our lifetime. Is automobile one of the products that is worthy and deserving of having a consultant? And I'll put the facts in front of you. Number one, think about what percentage of your income goes towards your transportation and your automobile needs. And think about, especially for families that have 2, 3, 4 vehicles in their family, in the household. And don't think about just the upfront cost. Don't think about monthly installments or monthly payments. Also think about the gas bill. Think about repair bills. Think about maintenance. Think about insurance. All these things add up, and if you add all of that up for all the family members, sometimes it's higher than your mortgage. So it is pretty significant. That's part. This is that significant of a product that we go through, and it's not something that happens once. Think about, on average we do it, if you're leasing, on average we do it every 3 years. If you're purchasing, average Americans change cars every 4 to 5 years. So think about how many times we go through the cycle, and think about if you have this expert consultant on your side, how much over the lifetime, when you add up all the family members, how much you could save. Number two, our livelihood in this country depends on cars and automobiles. I have a lot of clients that come from other countries. They come from Europe. They have never owned a vehicle in their life, and they can't survive more than a month in the United States. You really need a car here. In most states and most cities, you cannot survive without a car. Think about the importance, to your livelihood. Think about that attorney that has to make it to that important court date. Think about that doctor that has to make it to that important surgery. Think about that student that has to make it to that important test. Think about businessmen that carry products, or salespeople that carry products, and they go from one end of town to another. It's an essential product. It's a critical product. We cannot survive without it. Reason number three, and here we're putting an argument on whether automobile is a product that is deserving of a consultant. Our lives depend on automobiles. Think about hundreds and thousands of products that you buy in your lifetime. How many of those products you could actually come back and say your life and your health depends on it? It's a very unique product. Think about all the serious accidents that happen on U.S. roads and U.S. highways. More than the statistics are high. More than 500,000 serious injuries happen, either the passengers losing their lives or permanent damage. We're talking about paralysis. We're talking about brain damage, spinal cord damage, neck damage. More than 500,000. One of the very unique products where our lives depend on it. So putting all these, these three major reasons together, meaning percentage of income, livelihood, and lives, I think it's a no-brainer on the big question of whether automobile is worthy of a consultant or not. I think it's worthy of a consultant before many other needs that we have, that we actually use a consultant. So like I mentioned, after when you contact us, after we go through this whole technical analysis, based on your needs, the 400 models, distinct models that are available in the US market, the computer program eliminates them down to 4 or 5. And those 4 or 5, we know from a technical standpoint and from your from a driving standpoint, they equally match all your needs, the roads you drive on, your driving experience, all the driving requirements, the 4 or 5. This is before we even get into the financial analysis. Financial analysis is very important. So now we're down to 4 or 5 models. Financial analysis, the biggest part of it is to first determining the method of transaction, and those things are not something that could be randomly picked. There are different methods of transaction. You could do cash, you could do financing, you could do lease with the intention to return the vehicle at lease end, you could do lease with the intention of purchasing the vehicle at lease end, or you could do certified pre-owned vehicles. And again, it's not something that you could just randomly pick from the air. It has to be calculated. There's mathematical formulas to see which method makes sense for you and which method puts you ahead financially the most. That is very important to determine that. Sometimes sometimes you could do, instead of, even if you're planning to, whatever reason, you want to keep the car more than 4 or 5 years, and you want to, let's say your driving cycle here is maybe 6, 7 years. You like to change cars every 7 years. Sometimes it makes sense to lease and then purchase the vehicle at lease end, as opposed to financing it from day one. Sometimes that combination of the lease installments and that residual that they have agreed, to sell the car to you after the lease is cheaper. That when you add it up, the sum is lower than if you finance the car from the beginning. Sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes, certified pre-owned vehicles, if they have depreciated enough, and if the incentives on the brand new vehicle are not good enough, and the certified pre-owned 3 or 4 or 5-year-old car has depreciated enough that the monthly payments make sense. Sometimes, if that monthly payment is significantly lower than if than your lease payments of the brand new car, most 99% of the time, the lease is going to be on a brand new car. Used car leasing is not very common. So when you compare those, on the certified pre-owned, let's say on a 4-year finance, if they're significantly lower, sometimes they do make sense on the certified pre-owned vehicles. So that's the first part of the financial analysis, the method of transaction. After that is determined, let's say, for example, we decide that financing makes sense for you or leasing makes sense for you, whatever that is more suitable for your situation. We get into the next part of the financial analysis, and that is looking at the factory specials. Factory specials are very, very important. They call them manufacturer incentives. There's different categories. There's rebates. There's marketing support, which is the cash that goes from the manufacturer to the dealer to help the dealer sell the vehicle. There's low interest financing, and there are lease specials. And we have to analyze all of that on those 4 or 5 models that we're down to see which one puts you ahead financially in the highest or most way. After that is done, we're down to 1 or 2 models, and those 1 or 2 models are the best of both worlds. We know that both from a financial standpoint and from a technical driving standpoint, they are the best. So this is the whole process of systematic step-by-step process of customization of the vehicle to you, eliminating the 400 distinct models down to 1 or 2 models that are both from a financial and technical standpoint are most suitable for your needs. And this is the equivalent of if you go, let's say you want to buy a new house, you go into a city, there are, let's say, 500 houses, existing houses in the market that you could go and look at. Each house has got its strength, weaknesses, positive points, negative points. Or you could go and buy that empty land and get your architect and get your engineer and get your builder to custom build it exactly to your desires and to your requirements. When we eliminate the 400 models of automobiles down to 1 or 2 through a very systematic, calculated process, that is the equivalent of custom building that house. So that it's basically, instead of going to the store and buying the suit is paying that tailor to tailor make the suit to you. So that, we have peace of mind that both from a technical standpoint and from a financial standpoint, this one or two the one or two vehicles are the best for you, and you're going to love them because they've gone through the process. It hasn't been randomly picked. So after that step, what do we do? Then the make and model is determined. We determine the color. We determine the options. Options are important. We'll discuss them. Some of them are safety options. They are worth paying the extra, $500, $1,000, $1,500 for. Some options are luxury options. We'll discuss them. Some of them are worth it. Some of them you have no use for and you waste your money. So let's discuss them. The vehicle's built, it's custom built. The make and model, the color, the options. We'll find a car somewhere near you, maximum 50, 60 mile radius. We're not going to make you drive too far. Most of the time it's closer than that. The specific dealers that we have handpicked, we don't work with all dealers. We only work with about 2,500 out of the 20,000 new car franchises in the United States. They have very exclusive characteristics. First of all, they work on a volume model. That means they sell a lot of cars, but they make less profit per car. It's similar to the Costco business model. So that enables them to offer us the absolute lowest market price at the time on that particular vehicle that they have in their inventory. And they give you 5-star service, all the traditional gamesmanship in this business. That you walk in, you want a white car, you walk out with a yellow car. You walk in, you want a car that's 4 cylinders, you walk out with a 6-cylinder, or the other way around. You walk in with a car that you want power and you want a 6-cylinder car, you walk out with a 4-cylinder car. All of that has disappeared out of this business. If you enjoy games, this company is not for you. You waste your time, you waste our time, and you waste the fee that you pay to us, because there's, when it comes to traditional gamesmanship in this business, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. I'm not going to get into the details. This company is on a zero tolerance policy. We are on a zero tolerance basis, absolutely no tolerance for those games. The underlying, fundamental reason we established this company is to eliminate those games, because our professional clients do not enjoy that. But if you are one of those out of 1,000 that enjoys the gamesmanship, butting heads and taking 10 Saturdays to go from dealership to dealership and playing around with them and they playing with you, please do not contact us. It's not going to work. It's going to be a waste of time. So all that is eliminated. This exact car that you want, but the way we built the car, the color you want, the options you want. If they don't have the car, they'll find it for you in the region, as long as it exists. Some cars, you come up with this unique, yellow or unique, green color with certain option combinations. It might not exist. You might have to custom order it from the factory. But most of the time, if they don't have the particular vehicle in the dealership, in their inventory, they'll find it for you. So what happens is we'll send you an email with the contact information for the dealership, the name of the sales manager that you're going to be dealing with. You won't work with the salespeople. You're going to deal with sales managers, the phone number. Once you get that email, please call them right away. What they'll do is, if you cannot make it to the dealership within 48 hours because of your busy schedule or for whatever reason, they'll take a $500 refundable deposit on your credit card, which is 100% refundable. That secures the vehicle, so that if you don't have time and you cannot make it, let's say until the weekend, you are secure the vehicle doesn't get sold. If the vehicle gets sold, then we have to start all the work all over, find a car, and if we have to do redundant work, you're going to get recharged. So it's very important to secure the vehicle right away as soon as you receive the email, so it doesn't get sold. And that color combination of colors and options, there might be only one at that dealership. I ask you to go pick the vehicle up, take advantage of the incentive and the discount. Discounts and incentives in the United States are time sensitive. The discount that I get you today when I send you the email might not be good within a week or a week later. It might not be good. It might be good for a few days, but a week later might not be good anymore. And if you wait for whatever reason and you procrastinate, and you come back a week later and say, hey, I want the same discount, I might not be able to get it for you. And also go pick it up, because you're gonna, if you don't, you're gonna waste, the fee that you pay us. Again, you could see our fees, www.ocautorconsult.com, under fees and policies. These fees are not contingency. Sometimes you have contingency. You tell the salesperson, if you sell, I'm going to give you a percentage profit. A percentage commission. Or if you sell, if you tell the attorney, if you win the case for me, I'll give you a percentage of it. Our fees are not contingency. Once our work starts, our professional work starts, we will charge the fee regardless. It's not contingent upon your decision to go pick the vehicle up or not, because we have put in time and resources into it, and the information we send you is going to save you time, it's going to save you money, and it's going to put you ahead technically. It's going to help you choose the right product. That information has got dollar value associated with it. So regardless of whether you pick the vehicle up or not, you will be charged. So don't waste that fee. Go ahead and finish it. And remember, this is, we're trying to build a professional relationship here. It's not a traditional seller and buyer relationship. Seller and buyer is when you want to go, let's say you want to go buy a carpet, or you want to go buy a car, You go to 10 dealerships, you do whatever, you do window shopping. There's no expectation from either side, from the seller or the buyer, for the transaction to happen. A professional relationship is when you go to your tax accountant, you sit down, he takes information from you. Based on your information, he does a customized tax return that's best for you, does a professional job. And then at the end, there's no legal contract that says, okay, you have to sign that tax return and send it in right away. But there's this professional expectation, professional courtesy that you will do that. And regardless of whether your end decision of whether you're going to send the tax return right away or not, he will charge you, $300, $400, $500, whatever the fees. So that's how we work. We perform a professional service, and we get and you get charged. It's not contingent upon your final decision of whether to go pick the vehicle up or not. So with that, let's get into technical. A big portion of our work, like I mentioned, is technical analysis. And traditionally, in the United States, there are different, what we do is, we categorize these 400 models of cars in our computer system between 15 and 20 categories. And in each category, you have, let's say, anywhere between 15 to 20 vehicles that directly compete with each other. For example, luxury SUVs, or let's say luxury convertibles, or minivans, or family sedans. So we categorize them, and then there is direct competitors. So traditionally, when you look at the market in the U.S., let's say you look at the past 30 years, there's always certain segments that heat up. Look at the 80s when Chrysler came out with the minivan. And minivans were competing with four-door sedans and with SUVs back then. There was not as many SUVs on the road, but they were competing mostly with four-door sedans. Then pickup trucks started picking up, but there's a lot of pickup trucks where contractors always, contractors and farmers and construction workers always had pickup trucks. But now a lot of people start buying pickup trucks for personal use. That segment heated up. But in the past, I would say 15 to 20 years, SUVs, there's no question that they have really heated up. And right now, the big battle is between SUVs and four-door sedans. Now, it could be luxury SUVs versus the luxury four-door sedans, or it could be basic family SUVs versus family four-door sedans. But there's a lot of cross-shopping between these segments, and they cross a lot. You see, the person might go and look at a BMW 325i, but at the same time might go on also consider an Audi Q5 or a BMW X3, which are SUVs. So there's a lot of cross-shopping going on, and right now this is the big battle, and the number is really small. Only 10 million Americans per year right now are deciding between sedans or SUVs. I mean, such an insignificant number. Why did SUVs heat up so much? And the biggest part is that, in the past 15, 20 years, engineers started instilling and incorporating car-like characteristics in these vehicles. And a lot of times these SUVs are based on the chassis of cars, where they used to be based on a chassis of a truck. For example, you know, a Toyota Highlander is based more on a chassis of, let's say, a Toyota Avalon or Toyota Camry. But the older ones, let's say the old Toyota 4Runners, are based on a Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. So they're becoming more car-like because they're going on car chassis, and they're lower. They brought the ground clearance lower and the center of gravity lower. So when it comes to their dynamics and their driving dynamics and their driving characteristics, they're more car-like. As a result, they have become more and more popular. And the popularity is unbelievable. You know, 15 years ago, when you looked at the new car market in the United States, roughly 400,000 SUVs got sold every year. Annual sales of 400,000 total SUVs in the US market. Last year, that number was 4 million. It has become 10 times. It has increased tenfold over a period of 15 years, which is unbelievable. The growth rate is just unbelievable. They're very popular, and they're definitely a big competitor to the four-door sedan segment. We were talking about the driving characteristics. The dynamics have improved. Handling, steering, braking has improved dramatically. The rides have become softer. You know, the older SUVs, when you looked at, 20 years ago, and you looked at the Jeep Grand Cherokee or Ford Explorer, even when you were on a paved road, paved highway, they still drove more like a truck. Now when you go inside certain SUVs, they drive like a normal sedan. I mean, I'm talking about the ride quality, strictly ride quality. The ride, you feel like the ride is so soft that it's more like a sedan. Fuel economy has improved dramatically. You don't have that differential in your fuel bill as you used to, 15, 20 years ago. And luxury features have gone into SUVs. 20 years ago, there might have been only 2 or 3 luxury SUVs available in the market. Today, more than 40 luxury SUVs that are $35,000 plus, that are more than $35,000 are available in the US market. So again, traditionally, 20 years ago, you might have gone and looked at, a certain prospective buyer might have gone and looked at a $35,000 Jeep Grand Cherokee or a $35,000 Ford Explorer, but the same buyer would never go look at the Mercedes C-Class or BMW 325i or an Infiniti. But today, there's a cross-shop. Right now, like I mentioned, you might go look at the Infiniti Q50, but you might go also look at the Audi Q5 or Infiniti FX37 SUV. So there's a lot of cross-shopping going on. And but at the same time, one of the advantages of SUVs back, when it started, was having the all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive for slick roads, for snow and ice. And those all-wheel drive systems, a lot of them have become there's more availability and more models on four-door sedans. So at the same time, the sedans are offering more also. So back then, there might have been only 4 or 5 models, mostly Audis and Subarus. I'm talking about 20 years ago, where you could get four-wheel drive systems or all-wheel drive systems in a sedan. But now there are more than 30 all-wheel drive sedans available. So if you're driving on snow or ice, you don't necessarily have to go get an SUV. Okay, we have a very interesting movie. I'm going to describe the movie for a few minutes, and then or a shot, and then we're gonna show it to you. When it comes to emergency handling, which is that emergency maneuver, most of the time, especially if you're at high speed, there's significant difference between SUVs. There's a huge differentiation in the engineering of the chassis and the suspensions. And we're talking about the tendency to roll over. SUVs are tall, to roll over or to lose control. Losing control means that, either you spin or you take a larger radius than the turn and you go off the curve. You hit a tree or whatever, you go off the curve. So controlled, SUVs, one of their weaker points, because of their mass and because of the higher center of gravity, is both the tendency to roll over and the tendency to either to lose control on a sharp curve. And there's a significant difference between them, especially in emergency maneuvers. When you see this movie, please do not focus on the make and model, because these vehicles are older. They have improved them. I don't want to, right now I'm not focusing on this car is better than that. Just focus on the difference in the tendencies. Please put the movie and I'll explain it without a sound, and I'll explain it. Look at the first vehicle here. I don't want to mention the name of the vehicle because again, the vehicle has changed, but just there are 3 different SUVs that are testing. This test is done in Sweden. It's called the Moose test because in Sweden, you know, when you're driving on highways, all of a sudden a moose might jump in front of it and you have to maneuver around it. Look at this SUV and look at how it handles. It doesn't handle very well when you do the emergency maneuver. This vehicle, if you're going a little bit faster, could roll over. Dangerous, dangerous. The emergency handling is not very good. Again, you know, do not focus on the make and model because there's been, now look at this SUV. Look at how much more controllable it is. This SUV here, and look at the third SUV. Again, excellent control where there's less probability of both losing control and rolling over. So very, very important depending on the types of roads you drive and your driving experience. For example, your youngsters under the age of 25, your sons and daughters, might not be as experienced in doing these emergency maneuvers. Here, you know, the engineers are doing their measurements of lateral acceleration, which is indicative of the tendency to roll over or tendency to spin or tendency to go off-road. Very important. Again, concentrate on the difference. There's a huge difference between these SUVs. Look at this SUV. This is the one that's not very good. And you know what? What happens? Sometimes they blow the tire, which is interesting. On an emergency maneuver, if you blow the tire, that even makes it worse because, you know, with a blown tire, you know, this vehicle blew the tire as you saw. Look at how the front tire blew. Makes it even more dangerous, adds to the tendency to roll over. Dangerous stuff. You know, if you're driving on high-speed freeways and you decide to get an SUV, or if you're driving on mountainous roads with sharp curves, definitely call us. We could tell you what SUVs are most suitable for your driving experience and for those roads which are higher risk roads. Here, it's saying that they blew seven tires in this test. Not a good thing if your tire blows on an emergency maneuver. Let's say, you know, in Sweden, the moose jumps in front of you, but guess what? You know, in United States, you might have a cat or a dog or some other pet or something that jumps. You know, a lot of roads here in the United States, you know, a deer might jump in front of you. Or you might, you know, you're driving on a highway and there might be something, you know, a pickup truck is carrying something, it might fall on the highway. You have to maneuver around it. So again, you know, the reason we showed this shot is the differential, the difference in the engineering between vehicles. Very, very important. Not every vehicle handles the same. Not all SUVs handle the same. Very, very important. So with that, let's talk about SUVs. Let's talk about the advantages first versus four-door sedans. Okay, on SUVs, number one, you sit higher. You know, the driving position of the driver is higher, so you have more control, better visibility, no question about it. And a lot of people like that they sit, you know, let's say anywhere, let's say 20 inches, somewhere around 15 to 20 inches higher, depending on the SUV. You know, certain SUVs even taller than that. But the seating position of the driver versus a four-door sedan, sometimes it's usually 15 to 25 inches taller. The second biggest advantage is what we call space efficiency. Space efficiency is the interior space. Obviously, you know, in their cargo compartment, almost all the time they have more space for carrying cargo than your sedan. Also, space efficiency means that you take all the interior space and then you divide that by the length times the width of the vehicle. So for the same footprint, which is the length and the width, SUVs have more room because they're taller. Now, what is significant about length and width? Well, guess what? Think about, you know, if the car is too long or too wide, it might not fit in your garage. It might not fit in that parking spot where you usually park. If you live in a congested city like New York City or San Francisco or somewhere, there's always tight parking spots. So length and width make a huge difference. If you could get more interior space out of having lower length or lower width, it's to some people, that have parking limits, limited, parking space, it could become handy. In California, a lot of places you go, it says compact. If you have a big car, you cannot park in that spot. It's marked as compact car. So that is the space efficiency, the efficiency of the interior space versus the exterior dimensions is huge with SUVs. The next advantage, ground clearance. Ground clearance is the distance between the floor of the car or the lowest point of the car and the ground. SUVs sometimes up to 20 inches or taller than, or less than 20 inches. Let's say anywhere between 5 to 10 inches or taller than cars. When does that come into play? When you're doing off-roading. If you're doing off-roading, obviously, you don't want to scrape the underneath of the car. But also in city driving, if you drive, if you hit the curb or if you go on a ramp or something where there's an angle, sometimes you scrape the bottom of your sedan. But SUVs usually don't have that problem. Tires and rims are very, very important. In SUVs, when you look at it, the aspect ratio of the tire, which is the sidewall of the tire. Sidewall of the tire is the actual tire part, not the rim. You see they're taller. So you have more tire, but you have less metal. You have less rim. When does that come into play? When you hit a pothole, when you hit a curb, or when you go off-road. So the tires and rims are more durable. There is less possibility of blowing a tire. There's less possibility of bending the rim. For those drivers that get their sports sedan, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, whatever car they drive, and every 6 months they're bending this rim, bending that rim, and it could become a very expensive proposition. SUVs are a good solution for those drivers. And another thing that I mentioned was the availability of all-wheel drive for slick roads for those of us who drive on the snow belt or go skiing. If you drive in the snow belt, northern states, snow, ice, there's no lack of it, especially this year. Basically, like I said, there are 80 models of sedans, but only 30 of them offer all-wheel drive as an option. But SUVs, basically all 8, there's somewhere between 80 to 90 models of SUVs available in the US market. Every single one, you could get, not all of them have all-wheel drive. Some of them have all-wheel drive standard. Some of them are two-wheel drive, but you could always pay the extra $1,500, $2,000 to get that all-wheel drive. So availability of all-wheel drive in all SUV models adds to your choices. You have more selection. So now we're still talking about the advantages of SUVs. There are a lot of advantages, and they all have to be analyzed. That it's important. Okay, let's get into safety. Safety is in certain cases, especially after the crash. Let's not talk about crash prevention. Let's not talk about emergency handling. Let's say two vehicles collide. SUVs are usually the winners because in a crash, when a bigger car crashes with a smaller car, usually the bigger car wins. If a tractor trailer hits your car, most likely the driver in the tractor trailer survives, but you have no chance of walking out without an injury. So the big advantage is the mass or the weight of the SUVs. They're anywhere between 1,000 pounds to 3,000 pounds heavier. A lot of bigger SUVs that you see on the road, Range Rovers and Cadillac Escalades and Mercedes GLs, they are significantly heavier than your normal sedan, anywhere, easily 2,000 pounds heavier. And another advantage of SUVs in a crash is their height. Makes a huge difference. Think about a broadside accident in an intersection. The taller car, the taller SUV, the bumper is going to run straight into the window of the shorter sedan. And guess who's the winner here? You don't need a degree in quantum physics to figure that out. Taller vehicles are usually the winners when it comes, when they hit a shorter vehicle. Even in a head-on collision, the taller, sometimes what happens is The taller vehicle overrides the crash structure of the shorter vehicle. In other words, they don't hit each other direct, they go over it. And guess what? The vehicle that's on top is always the winner. And SUVs, have these advantages from a crash standpoint, from a safety standpoint. You cannot deny them. Okay, let's talk about the negatives on the SUVs. Some of them are perceptions. Be careful, because if you have driven a sedan for 20, 30, 40 years, you have built certain perceptions about SUVs that may not be reality and may not be true. So be careful with the perceptions. There's facts and then there's perceptions. So one of the perceptions is that they're harder to control. That is not true. A lot of newer SUVs, they've brought them down. They're not as tall, and they're just as controllable. Remember I mentioned, the dynamics of them. They're more car-like. Yes, if you have driven a Mercedes sedan or a BMW sedan for 30 years and you go into an SUV, the first day you might say, oh, this is new, but it doesn't take more than 2-3 days to get used to it. My father, 80-year-old father, for the past 12 years, we have got, every 3 years, we lease him an SUV. He's totally happy. He used to drive a sedan all his life, and now he's driving a crossover SUV, and he's totally happy, and he wouldn't go back into a sedan. They're not hard to control at all. They have become much car-like, much sedan-like. So totally wrong. Entry, exit into the SUVs, because they're taller, some elderly, if you have physical limitations with your knees or your back, it might be harder, but that has also become big over time, as SUVs, as their height have come down over the past 15 years, that become easier. But it might be an issue depending on what kind of physical limitations you have. If you cannot enter a taller vehicle, then you have to go into a sedan. There's no way around it. Some people think SUVs are more expensive. Not necessarily. On the leases, sometimes leases are similar. Sometimes you could go lease an excellent SUV like a Mazda CX-5 or a Ford Escape or a Volkswagen Tiguan for the same price as your normal everyday Honda Accord or Toyota Camry. So they're not necessarily true. Look at BMW. Look at the comparable models. A BMW X5 is not more expensive than a BMW 535i, especially when they put lease specials on them. Sometimes they're even cheaper. So they're not necessarily more expensive. Some are more expensive, but not all the time. Fuel economy. Years ago, when you took a 6-cylinder, Jeep Grand Cherokee, let's say 20 years ago, you drove a BMW 325i and your monthly gas bill was $300, and with a 6-cylinder, sedan. And then you go and you went and bought a Jeep Grand Cherokee 4-wheel drive with 6-cylinder, same size engine, and your gas bill went from $300 to $400. You had to pay an extra $100 per month for gas. These days, the differentiation that they have come a lot closer. The gap has closed. These days, I could show you SUVs that use maybe 5 to 10% more gas. They're still not as gas efficient because they're heavier. The same engine SUV, because the mass is higher, the weight is higher, it's going to use more gas. But the gap has closed. 10%. That means 10% means your $300 per month gas bill goes to $330. That $30 is not a factor of decision anymore. In other words, it shouldn't affect it's a much more insignificant when it comes to deciding between cars and SUVs. So, if fuel economy is a major issue for you, if you do a lot of miles, if you do over 20,000 miles a year, then fuel economy should be a factor, but doesn't necessarily mean you can't drive SUVs. Call us, we'll tell you what SUVs are the best in long distance in highway fuel economy. If you drive on freeways and highways, long distance, over 20,000 miles per year. Ride, a lot of people think SUVs, ride rougher. Absolutely untrue. Again, 20 years ago, yes, that Jeep Grand Cherokee drove like a truck, didn't drive like your Mercedes E-Class. But these days, go drive an Acura MDX, a $45,000 SUV. You feel like you're driving a Mercedes E350. Go drive a Mercedes ML350 SUV. You feel like you're driving a BMW 535i sedan. They have improved significantly in ride. Now, it's not a decision factor anymore. It's not a differentiating factor anymore. Rides are car-like. Why? Because they're not made for off-road anymore. They're made for the highway. They're made for you to go 60, 70, 80 miles an hour on the highway. What else are we talking about that as far as weaknesses or disadvantages of SUVs? The last one is the dynamics. Dynamics, like I mentioned, is an issue, and I'll go over the dynamics. Dynamics of the SUV, in emergency handling, or if you go on curvy roads, if your routine requires curvy roads, it comes to the matter of what in physics they call inertia. Inertia in physics is a function of the mass of that object, the distance between the center of gravity of that object and the ground, and the distance between the center of gravity of that object and the geometrical center of that object. What is geometrical center? On this vehicle, if you take a line that halves this vehicle this way and that way, this in the middle, this is called the geometrical center of, it's exactly the center of that vehicle from a geometrical standpoint. However, the center of mass of that vehicle or the center of gravity of that vehicle is not necessarily at the same point, because it depends on where the major masses on the vehicle are distributed. For example, the engine is a heavy component. It's in the front. The gas, in the back of the car, if you put 4 luggages that are 200 pounds, that's going to change the center of gravity of that vehicle. So you look at sports cars, look at Maserati, look at Ferrari. What do? They put the engine right behind the driver. Why? Because they want to move the engine, which is a heavy component, close to the geometrical center of the vehicle. Why? Because that helps handling. So remember, concentrated heavy masses, the closer they are to the center to the geometrical center, the better the handling, the easier the easier is to handle on a curve or an emergency maneuver. Center of gravity of the vehicle, again, I mentioned the height of it on SUVs. This is just a function of physics. It's not a function of engineering. SUVs are taller. That means the center of gravity is anywhere between 15 to 25 inches taller than a sedan. And that affects handling in a negative way. The higher the center of gravity, the worse the handling. The higher the tendency to roll over and the higher tendency to lose control around the curve. That's a function of physics. You can't do anything about it. You could lower the SUVs, but there's so much you could lower it. Once you lower it too much, then it's not an SUV anymore. Then now it becomes a station wagon or it becomes a sedan. So that is the center of gravity. But if you look at the progress of SUVs over the past 15 years, you see that engineers have done a lot of engineering in putting the weights lower in SUVs, so it's not the center of gravity is not as high. And then the final piece is the mass, is the actual weight, and there's not much you could do about that. SUVs are heavier, and weight affects handling in a negative way. All those traditional perceptions, oh, this vehicle is heavy and it sticks to the road, all of it is wrong. Look at Ferrari. All the body components are aluminum. Why do they put aluminum? Aluminum costs 3 times the amount of sheet steel. Why do they put aluminum? Just to save weight. Why do they make the engines out of aluminum? I mean, cast iron engines are a lot cheaper to make, but it saves weight. And what happens to weight? Weight, when you lower weight, it helps handling. Look at how Ferrari handles. It handles like it's on rails because the weight is low. So engineers have done a lot of work in reducing the mass of a SUV, but they're taller, they have all these all-wheel drive components, there's so much you could do. So over time they have done that. So what do we do here? We have the issue of physics, the inertia, which is the high center of gravity and the high mass or high weight. How do we defeat that? How do we overcome that? We overcome that with engineering, with technology. So engineers have to put extra money, extra engineering resources, extra development time to defeat physics or to overcome the negative physics. So, and look at what they have done. Look at some of the SUVs. Look at the Audi Q5, for example. Look at the Infiniti FX37. They handle better than some sedans, which is unbelievable. They handle better than, let's say a Lincoln MKS or a Lexus ES350. You actually have certain SUVs that handle better than sedans. Not because of the physics. Remember, the mass is still higher, the center of gravity is still higher, but the money, the development, the design, the engineering has gone into the chassis. So that's a huge differentiation factor here in the design and engineering of the chassis that differentiates SUVs. A lot of SUVs, do have that tendency to roll over, and then also, on a rollover, also, remember the roof strength. And a lot of new tests include roof strength because they want to determine once the vehicle rolls over one time or 3 times, at high speed maneuvers, sometimes they do roll over. How much are these roof pillars protecting the passenger? And remember, in a rollover accident, if it happens, remember 2 factors: your seat belt and the strength of that roof. If the vehicle is designed right, for rollover, and that roof doesn't crush, as long as you're wearing your seat belt, you will survive. You might have scratches, you might break an ankle or something, but you will survive. Nothing significant would happen. If you do not have your seatbelt on and a rollover, you have no chance you're finished. Absolutely no chance. On a rollover, a lot of people who lose their lives is because they don't have their seatbelt on. But there's also a significant differentiation when it comes to roof strength. And they have, in the past 5 years, they've done a lot of roof strength tests on SUVs, and there's a huge difference between them. Definitely call us, so we'll discuss that with you. So again, handling of SUVs, that is the biggest differentiation point between different SUVs. Right now, over 80 models of SUVs, and they're different when it comes to handling. So again, evaluate the risk if you're driving high speed on highways, freeways, or on curves, on sharp curves, mountainous roads, and you want to have an SUV. You could still have an SUV. It doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to have it. You cannot get an SUV, but we'll tell you the right SUV for it. If you're on, low risk category, for example, if you drive on secondary roads, you never go on the highway, you never go on curvy roads. Certain people, like, my mother, 75 years old, she doesn't go on curvy roads, she doesn't go on the highway. Then SUVs definitely make sense because there's no issue with emergency handling because most of the time you're driving under 40 miles an hour. So when it comes to SUVs, definitely contact us. SUV versus sedan, more than 10 million Americans are making a decision, and a lot of times they're randomly, it's not a trivial thing. It has to be calculated, it has to be customized to your needs. I see a lot of clients that come back, they should have bought an SUV, their previous vehicle. They should have got an SUV, instead they went and got a sedan, or they should have gotten a sedan and they went and got an SUV. Or they should have got a certain model of SUV, they got the wrong SUV. So definitely has to be discussed. We are your consultant, we are at your service. Definitely check out the website, www.ocAutoConsult.com. Pass the website to your friends, family, and acquaintances, and the telephone number is there. You could call me anytime, and I did talk about a lot of technical things, especially when it comes to SUVs. I'll be more than glad to discuss it more for you to make it more comprehensible if you didn't understand them. 949-677-3835. And thanks very much for taking your time and listening to the program. Take care.